All right. We're continuing on with the Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis. And we are in book 4, which is kind of focusing on actually what the Christians refer to as communion or the Lord's Supper. And I like calling it communion because that's a more in a universal fashion of enjoying the presence, and in the Christian tradition, they have this ritual that they do at different times. Some churches do it every day. Excuse me. And some churches do it once a week, and some do it only on special occasions or holidays. But it's basically remembering the Christ, remembering the life of the Christ. And of course, they've narrowed it down to just remembering the death, which is somewhat unfortunate, I think. But uh, to remember the sacrifice, that it's through that sacrifice that we find grace, right? And that's part of the role of the avatar in bhakti yoga is to God incarnates in order to reach us, in order to reach out to us. And as Ramakrishna says, it's one of the gifts of the incarnation, or one of the abilities of the incarnation, is for them to take on the karma of us folks who've got enough karma to share around a little bit. So the avatar is able and willing to take on your karma, which is the same as forgiving your sins in Christian speak. And so it's what endears us and what helps us to learn of love, and what gives us the confidence in the presence, uh, even if we're not having a great performance in our life, even if we're not able to kind of muster our strength, that we can always know the grace of our beloved is our strength, is our purity in the face of the divine presence. And so it gives us that security, that wholeness, that confidence before the beloved, and allows us ultimately to lay down our own karma, because all of us carry our karma in mind, in our own mind. And it's the mind that won't let us free of that karma. It's our mind that ties it to us through our attachment. Through our identity with mind, we attach to our karmas. And so the mind holds us to it. It won't let us believe things or exercise things that are outside the realm of our karma in almost every way. It's very interesting to me, this idea. I remember sitting in a devotee's house with Swami Prabhupada, and we were sitting in the library waiting for the devotee to come. And it was just stacked floor to ceiling with books in this room. And I commented to Swami how many books were there. And Swami looked around and said, "Yes, so many books, but you will not be able to read any, but you can only read the ones that your karma allows." And I thought, well, that's a fascinating idea to me. And that has everything to do with that notion of story, that we start about ourselves, our egoistic story, the story of our life, the story of our memories and events and things that we find important. That is actually what karma looks like from our perspective. It's our story, it's our history. That is what prarabdha karma is. That's what samskara is. It's our stories that hold us fast to egoism, to this sense of a separate existence. And that we don't let go of those stories because of attachment. We're attached to them. We identify with them. We think that they're my story. They're what I'm about. They're what I've invested my life in, and I've been working on that for my whole life. And so you want me to let go of it now? Well, I don't think so. It's like that. These old habits, old memories, old stories, old behaviors that we cling to as part of our identity. And the only ways to get to be able to get rid of that is through your discernment, on the path of jnana, where you're going to discern your way through it and develop that dispassion so it can lead to a healthy and firm renunciation. That's one way. It's a very difficult way, especially in the world today, Ramakrishna says. And so bhakti yoga allows us to do the same thing through relationship with the divine, through an understanding or growing in our understanding of what an unlimited and unconditioned love looks like from the beloved, and through the practice of opening ourselves to the existence of such a divine love, we are able to find the confidence and the security in that love to set down our karma, to let go of it, to break that identity. And then the bonds of love tie us into that unity with the divine. So today's chapter, chapter 6, it's on the examination of conscience. And it's a very short chapter, only 2 verses here, on the question of proper preparation before communion. Now, I acknowledge that these last few classes from this book are around the communion ritual. But as any universalist, as any broad-minded person knows, that you can abstract these things out to be very useful. So you could use this as a preparation for just any time you're sitting to commune with the divine. Anytime that you're trying to sit in the presence, you're going to go through these same practices. And so whether you actually take communion or not, and I do know some Vedantists that go and take communion regularly, actually. And, if that's part of your tradition or part of your act of devotion, that's a wonderful thing. So he says here, the disciple is talking. The disciple says, I'm very fearful, O Lord, and inwardly confused. When I think of your greatness and my own wretchedness, because if I fail to receive you, I run away from life. And if I receive you unworthily, I incur wrath. What then must I do, O my God, my helper and consoler in all these necessities? Please teach me the right way. Inspire me with some short exercise suitable for Holy Communion, for it is necessary for me to know how I ought to prepare my heart to receive you with reverence and devotion for the good of my soul, or to offer so great a divine sacrifice. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is exactly what's difficult for us and why we need grace and practice to let go, because we do approach this outrageous ideal. I really felt that during my sannyas ceremony in India when I was taking my second set of vows, to renounce the world. And it's a 10-day long procedure. And for hours every day of those 10 days, you're chanting these outrageously beautiful scriptures from the Upanishads and some of the ancient teachings around what you're doing, around this nature of sannyas, the nature of renunciation. And boy, I tell you, after 10 days of chanting these and being in the sannyas camp, boy, you become acutely aware of your inner condition. You become acutely aware of how unworthy you are in the face of these amazing ideals, these incredible teachings. And it was quite traumatic for me, because in one sense, I was looking at myself very much in these terms, looking at the greatness and the beauty of the divine principle and falling in love with that, but at the same time knowing myself, knowing my life, knowing my habits, knowing my past actions, knowing the things that run through my head all the time, and I remember just feeling like, mother, what am I doing? This can't happen. I can't, can never be worthy of this. I can't ever do this. And, for me, it drove me to go to the temple and just lay on the floor for quite some time, for quite a while, on the day of that final ceremony. It was supposed to happen in the middle of the night that night. And I spent the afternoon on the floor of the temple, just begging God that if it wasn't proper, that he would stop it from happening, that if it really was the blasphemy that it felt like to me, then how could I ever, ascribe to such an ideal, to make an attempt at such an ideal. I was like, oh my God. And, in the end, it was grace. In the end, it was an understanding that this was Mother's gift to me, that it was not something that we earn. It's not something that actually we can do. That this, our spiritual life, every bit of it is grace. When you utter your mantra, it is by grace alone that you were allowed to utter the name of God. It was a gift to you from mother, from her love, because of her love. Not because of some scaras, not because you deserved it, not because you did the right things, not that. It's from the grace of the divine. It's mother's love for you that draws you near to her. And it's mother's love for you that gives you your mantra, gives you your guru, gives you your confidence, gives you your teachings, sharpens your sense of spirituality, spiritual life. That it's all through grace that this happens, and that the more grace that's upon you, then the more worthy you become through inspiration, right? We talk about this quite a bit, but it's a very fundamental fact. And it's not something that we can just hear and suddenly be at peace and let go of all of our troubles. It takes practice, because we've clenched to our attachments so tightly for so long, and are holding on to many things that we're not even aware yet that we're holding on to. I'm always astounded when I find one of those pesky attachments that has been just so firm for so long that it's not even in my conscious mind anymore. And you don't even recognize it until someday mother just, pulls your eye open for a minute and says, look at this. And you're like, no, I can't see anything. She's like, no, look. And you're confronted with yourself again. So Christ comes in and says, above all things, the priest of God should come to offer, handle, and receive the sacrament with great humility and reverence of heart, full of faith and the loving intention in giving honor to God. Okay, so this is how we come and accept our gift of grace from the beloved, right? With a great humility. That's that we turn our shame, we turn our remorse into humility, which means we don't hold the judgment, right? We don't let it separate us from the divine. We understand that it's forgiven, that grace has covered it, but we are aware of it, right? We are aware of the separation that it caused through our discernment, because that's how we come to let go of it. That's how we come to let go of all of these things. And so, but it's through the confidence in the love and completeness of God's mercy, of God's grace, through which we approach God, right? So we have that great humility and a reverence of heart, right? Reverence of heart, because it is love. It is an amazing opportunity. And so when we approach God, we remember that. We're full of faith, right? And we've talked about what is that faith. At least part of that faith is in that unconditioned love, that such a love does exist, and that it is God, and that God has that kind of love toward us. The faith in that, right? Also the faith in our immortality, the faith that there is something beyond the seeming that we live in. The faith in the teachings of the teacher, the guru, the teachings of the scriptures, and in the life of the avatars and in their message to us. So we accept it with humility and reverence of heart, full of faith and the loving intention of giving honor to God, right? And what is that born of? That loving intention for giving to God. That's born of that grace. That's what happens to us when we accept that grace earnestly, with sincerity. What happens is inspiration. What happens is a lifting inside, the willingness, the not just a willingness, but an inspired willingness to get up and keep going, right? And so my friend Philip told me one time something very beautiful. He says the difference between a worldly man and a holy man is that when the worldly man falls off the horse, he'll stay off the horse. The holy man continuously gets back on the horse, no matter how ridiculous it might seem, no matter how inappropriate it might feel. Like, oh my God, can God really forgive me 400,000 times for the same mistake? Is it really possible, as willful as I am, that the love of God could touch me this way? That's what faith is. Faith is that, developing that and allowing then that grace to touch you so that you find the inspiration for renunciation, to walk away from the things that separate you from knowing that love, from experiencing that love of God. He says, examine your conscience carefully, right? Go in there, find out, do you have intentions that are unholy? Do you have plans set up that are going to interrupt your journey toward the divine? In this moment, am I sincere? Is this real? Am I doing this practice because I really want to know God, or what's going on in me? Why am I doing practice? Why am I spiritual? Why am I going to the center? These are questions that might not seem so important, but I tell you, they're the only way that I was able to stay in the monastery. I had to always go back and remember, why did I come here? Right? I came here for my realization, for my freedom. And then because, it seems like a lot of times, as anybody knows, you have to put up with a lot of stuff. You move into a monastery and you live in a dorm room and you have no money of your own, and you are joined without any claim to any rights whatsoever. You're giving up. You're offering everything, over to the Lord. And so sometimes it gets rather difficult, and sometimes you sit there and you think, I'm so finished with this place. I hate the way they run this place. I can't believe they're doing this. There was no point in that, and blah 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 blah. And in the brahmachari mind, in the beginning years, those fights are huge and fiery and powerful, because you're angry inside, because all of your thwarted desires, of all of the attachments that you're walking away from, you don't have access to them. You don't have the money to go out and buy and to grit and to enjoy and to, and all the rules of the monastery won't let you go out without a partner, won't let you go out after dark. And so all of your desires are being thwarted. And the Gita says that's where anger comes from. And so at the beginning, there's just lots of challenge, lots of difficulty. And you have to go in and examine your conscience. You have to go in there and say, what's going on in here? What's all this noise? Why are you fighting? Why are you angry? What's hurting? And you have to sort through all of that. And so he's saying here, anytime that you go before the Lord, you first wrap yourself in grace. You first get into that state of humility and reverence of heart, exercising your faith and demonstrating that loving intention, for serving God. And go and check your conscience. Make sure that you're not holding or hiding any of your, wrong thinking. Make sure that you're not protecting any of your samskaras from challenge. Make sure that you are open and clear before the beloved. So examine your conscience carefully and to the best of your ability. Cleanse and purify it by sincere contrition and a humble confession. Right? So you purify your conscience through honesty, through sincerity. You admit, yes, I've got a trouble with this. Yeah, it's a nagging trouble. And yes, I've been willful about it, but I can clearly say right now that I don't want it, that I want my spiritual life. I want my relationship with you. So you do this, you purify it by a sincere contrition and by a humble confession of it to the Lord, so that you may not be aware of anything to fill you with remorse or prevent your free approach to God, right? Just to know, yes, grace covers me, and I'm not taking advantage of that. I'm not taking license in that, right? I'm not just letting myself live my life any way I want because grace has me covered. No, I'm immersing myself in a faithful love for God, and I'll respond in inspiration for this gift, for giving me something this important. Be sorry for all your sins in general, and especially regret and have sorrow for your daily offenses. If time permits, tell God in secrecy of your heart all the miseries caused by your unruly passions. That's part of your discernment. Going in and sharing with God, in the presence of God, how these desires have affected you. If you go through and, like Girish Ghosh, you go and you get drunk and you have your drink, right? And then he comes to Thakur and he's like, oh, I'm such a horrible person, blah, 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 and this guilty conscience comes pouring out. But Girish covered it with faith immensely, covered it with faith. And he went in and he would go in and just like Brother Lawrence, when one of the things he told God, he's like, well, if you let me forget you, what do you expect? If you allow me to forget you even for a moment, you know the condition of my mind, you know the condition of this body mind here, you know that I can't stand up on my own, you know. And so to have that kind of attitude, it's like, God, take care of me, help me, strengthen me, let's get this done properly. Be full of grief and lament that you are still attached to the flesh and the world, so unmortified in your passions, so full of unsuppressed evil desires, so unguarded in your outward senses, so often engaged in useless imaginings, so readily drawn into things outside, so neglectful of those within. Right? So let's look at this list here. That you're still attached to the flesh, right? You still love your comfort and your pleasures. Like, think about that. Like, how can I do this to myself? Look how much misery, how much grief this has caused me, right? And so you sit and you describe them to the Lord. You're very honest. You've opened up your heart. You're talking very plainly about what's in there, because that sharing, that confessing, that opening, that honesty, that sincerity, that earnestness, to let the air through yourself, to let God see you as you see yourself to be, that is the only way that grace can get in there. That's the only way that you can really accept that acceptance of God. That's the only way that you can build that trust, is to bring God all the way into your life. Let him see firsthand all your circumstance and your situation, right? And lament the fact that you're attached to the flesh and to the world, so unmortified in your passions, so roughly uncontrolled, or so sneaky, depending on how you're fighting, so full of unsuppressed desires, right? So you're just accepting these desires and acting on them. Maybe holding them off until later, or maybe not doing them all the time, but maybe every third time, that's all right, or every fourth, whatever. You're making deals with yourself. You're compromising in there, and you're becoming comfortable in that compromise and in that lukewarmness. So you want to go in, see, and look at them squarely, so that you don't see them as something favorable, so that you don't see them as something special. You don't perceive them as something positive in your life at any level. So unguarded in your outward senses, right? You're not careful about what you're exposing yourself to, right? You're not protecting yourself, so that the things being offered on your fire, right? The things that you're letting into your eyes and letting into your ears and letting into your mouth, that these things, you're not being careful about them. And they have their effect on the purity of your mind. They have their effect on your confidence before God. They have an effect on how you enjoy or don't enjoy your practice or your time with God. Because that's one sure sign that compromise is strong in your life, if you're not enjoying your practice. Because the only reason we don't enjoy practice is because compromise prevents us from feeling that love, from knowing that warmth of God's presence, knowing that beautiful acceptance of God's presence, if we're holding on to small things that we're not willing to let go of. So full of unsuppressed evil desires, so unguarded in your outward senses, so often engaged in useless imaginings. What are the useless imaginings? Scrolling, that death scrolling, going through Reddit, one funny little thing after another, going through YouTube videos. Oh, God forbid those shorts that they've invented, awful things, so intensely addictive. You just sit there flipping through them. This is engaging in useless imaginings, to sit there and daydream about nonsense, to ruin your moment by thinking about what's not there, bringing the not here, not now into the here and now, and polluting your mind, causing it to have trouble, right? And then what's he say here? This next one is so readily drawn to things outside, right? That we talk about. That's what defines a worldly person. A person who still thinks that there's something in the world that will fulfill them. A person who still thinks that their joy or their happiness or their contentment is going to come by controlling or manipulating the conditions and circumstances of the external. As long as you believe that to be true, that's the definition of being worldly. We as spiritual seekers, through our discernment, should see at some point, right, that there's nothing this world can give you, because everything in this world ends. Everything. Everything composed must decompose. And so you are an immortal, infinite being. What do you think that you will gather from the finite that will feed you in any significant way, let alone content you, right? So it's a knowing. There's nothing. This world is passing. It's going. It's a thing to be, well, there's many ways to deal with it, actually. But there's that notion, that there's nothing here for me. I came here to give. That's why Mother dropped me off with nothing. And that's why when she comes to pick me up, she's going to pick me up with nothing, because she didn't put me here to take. There's nothing here for me to bring with me. And she made that unerringly clear by the fact that even the body has to drop. you don't have any means of carrying anything because the carrier itself is dropping, going away. So drawn to things outside and neglectful of those things within, very not bothering to keep that beautiful mantra running all the time, cutting 5 or 10 minutes off of our meditation this morning. Oh, it's so difficult. I'll just quit now. It's no big deal. What's 7 minutes, right? Just giving yourself little breaks like that, sleeping in. Oh, well, I didn't have time. I'll just do 20 minutes this morning, and maybe I'll do more at lunch or something. But you say it without any conviction, right? I'm just listing off to you the way my mind has pulled me through the trash these 60 years, the things I've learned by learning to watch it and see it. It's an unctuous little fellow. Boy, I tell you, the mind loves the body and wants the body in comfort at all times, not to say anything of itself. And so it's always demanding your attention. And so we just get pay so much attention to those externals, and we neglect the internal. What is the internal? The fact that the love of God is within you, the fact that the presence is permanent in you. We neglect that. We don't often go within to find contentment, right? We sit there. If we're not happy, what do we start doing? We start listing off things. Oh, maybe I'll go to the movies. Oh, maybe I'll call my best friend, John. Oh, maybe I'll go shopping. Oh, I need a drink. All these little whisperings that we tell ourselves to find our contentments. That's exactly what he's talking about here. You have one place to go for all of your contentment, and it is the only place to get contentment. And that is within, to go within, to touch within, to remove your delusions by separating yourself from mind and body and becoming intimately aware of this internal communion that is always happening, that is always present. And if you don't learn to test that and go in there and use that joy, use that confidence in yourself to change the condition of your mind, just to say, no, I'm not going to think that way. That's negative. No, I'm not going to talk that way. That's disrespectful. No, I'm not going to demand that. That's selfish. I'm going to sit here in quietness and repeat the name and think of love, right? And be filled with it. Bewail the fact that you are so easily moved to laughter and frivolity, right? And that means making light of things that shouldn't necessarily be made light of. It's the class clown that's never knows when to be reverent. No, never knows when to stop and be serious, right? Or to take something serious. So the fact that we're so easily moved to laughter and frivolity when there's perhaps more important things to be done. So slow to weep and repent, so slow to give up our vices, so inclined to relaxation and bodily comfort, right? Just getting in the habit of obeying the body. When the alarm goes off and you don't get up, it's because you're not in charge. The body's in charge, right? And that doesn't take you good places. And so all of the gurus say, control yourself. Self-control is very important. Integrity, very important. So if you set an alarm, even if you set that alarm accidentally, if that alarm goes off, you get up. There's no question. It's not a time to ask if you want to get up. It's not a time to survey the body and see, oh, do I feel like getting up? No, you get up because that's the way it is. Just like when it's time to practice, it's time to practice. There's no question. There's no conversation. When it's time to do what is right, it's time to do what is right. So slothful in austerity, right? Just cutting corners for the sake of comfort and ease. So eager for news and to see nice things, so reluctant to welcome humiliation and contempt, so craving for possessions, so stingy in our giving, and so obstinate in retaining. Right? So all of these things that happen when we stop our self-control, when we stop discerning and stop paying attention. These are, when Thakur says on the surface of the water is that green scum, and you can push it aside and you can see the clear water, but just for a few seconds before that scum all comes back. This is what the scum is. This is what Thakur is talking about. All these lazy little corner cuttings, all these little subtle compromises that we make, all of these little stories of license that we tell ourselves, all of this convincing that because we're special to God, he lets me get away with this, right? All of these wrong ways of thinking, little by little, they come in and they choke out our joy. They silence that echo of love that's natural within when the conscience is in good condition, when it's clear, when you're being sincere and when you're being earnest, right? You're being self-controlled. There's such a vibrancy of love. There's such a vibrancy of life. That prana inside just wells up, fills that heart. It's just, we really lose so much by these mini compromises, by just these little things everywhere in our lives. Grieve that you are so thoughtless in speech, so undisciplined in silence, so unmannerly in habit, so inconsiderate in action, so greedy for food, so deaf to the word of God, so quick to rest, so slow to work, so alert to gossip, so drowsy at holy vigils, so hasty to reach the end, to get things finished, so wandering in attention, so careless in prayer, so lukewarm at Mass, so lacking in fervor at communion. Right? I was sitting here reading this. I'm like, yeah, you can do all of this. But I think you should salt and pepper it a little bit here. This is the hot sauce. This is the stuff to light your fire inside, for renunciation and for dispassion. But you should also sit there and think about the incredible love of God. You should also sit there and think about the incredible grace of the beloved. You should also think of the incredible loyalty and devotion to you that God has. The fact that he has wandered every step of your life to give you every opportunity. Right? Deplore the fact that you are so distracted, so seldom wholly recollected, so suddenly moved to anger, so ready to take offense at others, so prone to judge, so severe in your rebuke, so happy in your prosperity, so morose in your adversity, so often proposing good resolutions and so rarely fulfilling them, right? When you have confessed and regretted these and all of your faults, being contrite and greatly displeased at our own weakness, firmly resolve. This is that one grand renunciation that Ramakrishna talks about. He's like, that one grand renunciation, that's all that's necessary. So the way the Christians are talking about it here, a grand renunciation is that firm resolve to amend your life and to advance in a life of holiness, right? To go forward with your nature, to spread love and wisdom in all that you do by having those as the definition of everything that you do. Then with complete abandonment of your will, that's that ego, the complete abandonment of your ego, your self-actualization. What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? What do I want to become? What should I accomplish? Letting go of that constant reference of I and thinking about the Lord, seeing the Lord everywhere and serving him accordingly. That complete, he puts that in there, complete, not fuzzy, a complete abandonment of your will, right? What is it that I want? Who cares? Shut up. Be present. Accept what is and go forward. Offer yourself up on the altar of your heart. That is the goal right there. Place yourself on the shrine of your own heart, right? Anything for love, God. Anything for you. Anything. You have given me so much, and I enjoy your presence so freely. What? Anything, Don't even have to name it. Just point at it. It's all yours. Offer yourself up on the altar of your heart as an unending sacrifice to the honor of the divine name. Give both your soul and your body into my keeping, that you may be found worthy to offer sacrifice to God and to receive the sacrament of my body with profit, right? So that you can know the mantras, so that you will get the gurus, so you'll have access to the scriptures, to these truths, right? All of those are signs of my grace to you. All of those are the gift of the beloved, that we can pick up a book, I've thought about that quite a bit with Ramakrishna, and I've mentioned this sometimes because I often thought, oh God, if I'd only been there. I thought a lot about that when I was over in India, and I was sitting there looking at Thakur's room, and I was like, oh man, what would it have been like to be able to just go to God, in the afternoon after school, just go over and see God sitting on his bed and just say, hey, what's up? Where am I at? What's going on in my life? Is there anything I need to be worried about? Can I get some help? To have that direct contact like that, I thought, oh man, that would be so great. But then I remembered I wouldn't have the gospel by my bed if I was there. I wouldn't have the 11 volumes of Vivekananda's works right there on my shelf to pick up anytime I want to. I wouldn't have the life of Holy Mother, to read about. I wouldn't have any of these things. I would only have Thakur when I was with Thakur. And so really what a great blessing that we're in now, that we can pick up a book, and we've seen the evidence also, right? If we had just known Thakur at Dakshineshwar, we've been like, this guy's just a little village priest and he's nuts, right? But now we know, now we see, oh my God, this guy was an avatar. Look, his name is already around the world. It's 200 years. And look, we're not even close to finished talking about him. We still haven't figured out everything that all the change that he was inspiring. We still don't know, all that he has done. But we see that this village, this little country village priest is now a worldwide name, with devotees in most of the countries around the planet, with many, many, many millions more to come, because that's how we know, right? That's how we know. God makes sure that his incarnations are remembered, that we know where to find them. There is no more worthy oblation, no greater means to wash away sin than to offer yourself purely and wholly to God, together with the offering of the body of Christ in Holy Mass and communion. If people do all they can and are truly sorry for their sins, their wrongdoings, as often as they come to me for grace and forgiveness, I am the Lord God who says, Do I take any pleasure in the death of the wicked? Do I not rather rejoice when they turn from their way and live? I will no longer remember their sins, but all will be forgiven them. Right. So this is the beloved Lord telling us directly. What do you think? Do you think I like suffering? Do you think I like, all of that? He's like, do you not know, as many times as you come to me for strength and forgiveness, for grace, for love, that many times I give it to you. All you have to do is come. All you have to do is face yourself before me. I'll wipe it away every time. He doesn't say, Peter in the Bible asks, how many times, God, do we get forgiven for something? Is 3 times, 7 times? And Jesus says 7 times, 7 times, 7 times, 7 times. He says, there is no limit to my grace. There's no limit to my mercy, right? If you come, if you show a desire for change, if you show an understanding of why that wasn't helpful and how that wasn't according to your nature, and you want to walk away from it, all you have to do is come and tell me, and I will help you walk away from it, right? And I've really seen that in my life, this taking refuge in Mother. It's, I'm specifically saying this one now, specifically for myself, that no temptation is too great for you, right? No samskara is too powerful for you. No bad habit is too strong for you. That the formula is very simple. When you feel the first nag of that wrong thinking, of that ignorance, right? When you feel the first slipping in there, it's very uncomfortable. We know it. We know it when it's happening. Instead of turning away and not looking at it and allowing it to, slowly and silently happen, immediately turn to Mother in your mind and immediately say, I take refuge in you. And you are utterly without excuse. You're utterly without excuse, because if that moment you start uttering the name, start chanting your mantra, start singing to the Mother and taking refuge, like you're saying you're doing in your very own prayer, you take that refuge and start chanting the name, your vices don't exist. They don't exist until you bring them back into your mind. So be earnest and be sincere and take refuge in the Mother, and you have nothing to fear. Grace is with you. The love of the Mother is yours, and she will never, 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 never walk away from you. Never, 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 never leave you wanting, I will no longer remember their sins, but all will be forgiven them. All right, he goes on here to chapter 8. On the offering of Christ on the cross and the resignation of ourselves. Christ, with arms outstretched upon the cross, I hung stripped and naked, and with nothing remaining in me which was not turned into a complete sacrifice. I willingly offered myself to God the Father to appease the divine wrath and to satisfy for your wrongdoing. Should you not willingly, therefore, daily offer yourself to me in the Mass with all the strength and the devotion of your heart as a pure and holy oblation? This way of thinking, it's good in one sense, and it's horrible in another, because this is sort of the way worldly men think. I've done something for you, and now you're beholden to me, right? And if you start thinking of it in that way, that's not the freedom we're looking for, and so it's not really because of that. We look at that only long enough to appreciate the fact that we've been set free, that we've let go of it. And once we've known that we've let go of it, now it's time to sing the name. Now it's time to live in the presence, to enjoy the communion, right? And that's where our strength and whatnot comes from. This is only at the beginning that we should think this way, that we should take have that kind of tit for tat, because God's love is not transactional. And this is the danger here, is that quite often our own ego will want to make the love of God transactional, so that I have to respond, or I'm obligated to respond, or, how can you filthy loser, act that way in front of God? That may be true, right? But that's not our attitude. Our attitude is to leave that out, set that down, and place our eyes on God and keep our eyes on God. That's what happens. And that's freedom. We appreciate our freedom by enjoying our freedom. We appreciate our forgiveness by delving into our communion, by sitting happily in the presence of God and making it something that it's something that we do when we have free time. Right? I had a Swami tell me that one time. I was talking to him, I asked him, well, what is earnestness? And he said, you're earnest for the things that you do when you have time, when you have free time. Those things that you choose to do, those are the things you're earnest about. So if you have a moment, nobody's watching, no one's around, you have nothing else to do, that which you engage yourself in is what you're earnest about. Right? And so this this is a great and painful lesson, to see. There's lots of room for us to improve. There's lots of room to grow. And the great thing is you've got all the grace in the world to do it. So don't bemoan your condition in that sense, but strengthen your condition by thinking of God at every opportunity and taking the freedom that you're getting from your mind, from your body, and placing it in the presence of God. I ask nothing more of you than this, your efforts to surrender yourself wholly to me. I care for nothing else that you can give besides yourself, for it is not your gift, but you that I seek. Right? Okay. So he's asking nothing more of this, but that you surrender yourself wholly to me. Who is he? He is you living your highest ideal. Right? So it's not a surrender to a third party who's going to make you do things his way. Right? Because the mind will want to set it up that way. It's not that. It is your own highest ideal, asking you to surrender everything that isn't in alignment, that isn't in harmony with your perfection, with your divine self. Let go of all of that. Hold on to nothing that isn't love, wisdom, and contributing to your being, to your joyful being. Right? So I'm not asking you for anything that I need from you. I'm asking for you. Right? And so it's the same way as God coming to you and say, look, I want to marry you because I love you. I don't want your money. I don't want your house. I don't want your family. I don't want your fame. I don't want your beauty. What I want is communion. I want to be with you, that is. And he says, that's all. And that's your only response necessary to this incredible grace, is allow yourself to be set free. Allow yourself to be transformed. Give up these things that have never fed you at all. Give up these things that have not improved the quality of your life, that have not made you a better person, that have not led you to happiness and inward peace. Let go of them. That's all. These things are hurting you anyway. These things are the thing that has kept you from having the life you wanted to have. I'm not asking for anything that you're actually going to lose by giving. I'm asking you to give up all those things that have already made you lose. Right? Since it would not satisfy you if you had everything but me, right? If you have no love, that's who God is. If you live a life devoid of love, you have nothing. Who cares? If you've got a big house and big cars and tons of money, but you don't have love in your life, we all know that condition. That's horrible, right? Since it would not satisfy you if you had everything but me, so neither am I pleased with anything you give if you do not offer me yourself. Give yourself to me, your entire self, to your God, and your offering will be accepted. See how I offered myself wholly to the Father for you. I gave my body and blood to be your food, that I might be all yours, and you completely mine. But if you rely on yourself and will not offer yourself freely to my will, your offering is incomplete, and a perfect union will not exist between us. Before all else, you must make a willing offering of yourself into God's hands. If you wish to obtain grace and freedom, the reason why so few are inwardly free and enlightened is because so few give themselves completely. My words are unchanged. Any one of you who does not renounce all of his possessions cannot be my disciple. Therefore, if you wish to be my disciple, offer up yourself to me and all with all of your affections. Right? Don't hold back. Don't compromise. Open to the beloved and in that loving trust, of love, composed entirely of love. Don't fear. Don't keep anything for yourself. I'll make sure you're fed. I'll make sure you're clothed. I'll make sure that you are well taken care of. But don't hold on to anything. Come to me. That's the call. That's communion. All right. Stop there and we'll